Hey, everybody, and welcome to Becoming More Me, the podcast for busy-minded entrepreneurs that want to be more and do less. These episodes are here to inspire you to become more of the person you feel called to be in this world. And gosh darn it, let it be easy. I'm your host, Teresa Lear-Levine. I'm an EFT master practitioner, a hypnotherapist, an international best-selling author of Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. And I absolutely love helping you to call your power back, get out of your own way, and just make this never-ending journey of becoming one you truly enjoy getting and being present for. This week is the final installment of kind of reviewing the amazing retreat that I went on up in Chilliwack, British Columbia in mid-May of 2024. And in this episode, the real theme is vision. The real theme is sightedness. And the real theme is how we look at things and perceive them, and what's at the heart of it all. And I'm going to explore that through a lot of different things that kind of culminated this retreat. We are going to finish up the time that we spent working with Dr. Divi. I'm going to take you on a walk through an enchanted forest. I am going to tell you all about the feelings of closing the container of the retreat and going back into the real world. I am going to walk you through the experience that I had for 2 weeks after the retreat, where I felt zero anxiety. And then I'm going to take you to the point where it all kind of crashed down and brought it on back to a different place entirely. So it's a roller coaster ride, it's a beautiful journey, and it all starts now. Oh my gosh, I promise you, this is the last of this series regarding the retreat, but probably not the last you'll hear me refer to it, because as you can tell now that we are 4 episodes into this, this has had quite an impact. Quite literally, my entire month of May was either preparing for this or integrating this or attending this. So it really was. It was very potent. It was very impactful. And I have a lot to say about it, obviously. So I want to drop back in to the session on Saturday where we were being graced by the presence and amazing intuitive capabilities of Dr. Divi, and all getting divied by the experience. And it was so crazy and so cool, and also just provoked every possible emotion, from euphoria to just deep sadness. And we all just kind of roller coastered through it as each of us had a different experience being worked on or worked with one-on-one. And as she kind of taught, as she talked to the different spirits or gods or goddesses that showed up. So I just wanted to share more about my experience. There's so many people's experiences that were really powerful. And yet, like I said in previous episodes, I don't really feel like I'm at liberty to intimately share other people's details, just because they're not mine. And I know I can share mine. So I have shared and perhaps overshared some certain details about this, but all of that I think just speaks to the power of it. So as I spoke about in the other episodes, the issue that came forward first when I was working with Dr. Divi was the eye issues that I have. So had a retina detachment when I always think about it in terms of my kids. So I know that my son Jonah was less than a year old when I had the detachment and the surgery, because I was still nursing him and I needed a lot of help because I was on my back, literally kind of just like staring at the ceiling while it healed for a number of weeks, which is really hard to do when you have, like, he was a little less than 1 or a little more than 1. It was somewhere around when he was 1. And that's a pretty active time for a child, and it's also hard for them to understand that mom's stuck in bed and can't do a whole lot. So I remember people coming to help me a lot, and I had the detachment, they put in a buckle, and then a number of years later, I ended up having some eye infections, and that's when they either realized that I had or it developed this macular pucker in my eye, which essentially means that in my right eye, in the center of my vision, there is no vision. So that was the initial thing that came up as something to work on with Dr. Divi because I had already met with her about that virtually. We had talked about it. I had done some third eye work on it, some consciousness work on it, and so forth. And so already when we started to do this work at the retreat, it felt different than when I originally brought the issue to her. There was just more peace around it and more being okay with it. But here are some of the interesting takeaways that I had from working on this and from the time that I was up there working with her. And it was just the focus on me and my issues. Now, I got so much out of everyone's work with her. But when I think about it, when I went in and we're thinking about how we can look at the eye issues, I really realized that everything is all about how you look at it. And it was really kind of the best metaphor for that. I think that in our best prayers, in our best musings with God or with the universe, the most potent thing that we can ask for is new eyes, is a new mind to see and understand things with, so that we can really break out of the matrix, break free from the lies that most people, including me, myself, are, believing and buying into on a day-to-day basis, and just truly remember who we are and what is actually real, which is such a 180 from the way most of us are living and believing on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what I got this new way of looking at things, both from incurring the issue in the first place and then from examining the issue from a place of higher consciousness. Because when I actually went in to quote unquote try to kind of solve this, fix this, what have you, I was shown that it wasn't actually a problem to begin with. Quite honestly, not even real in the sense of what's actually real in our lives. And the issue has actually given me a pathway to greater consciousness, greater understanding, and a totally different way of looking at things, literally and spiritually. So I was able to really put all of that together from everything that I went through in May around the retreat and from this experience. And then the other part of what I took away was quite literally around being seen, which also has to do with the eye. So when I was in one-on-one with Alexander, somewhere in the month leading up to the retreat, we were working on abundance blocks. I actually brought a lot of really heavy issues to the table in my one-on-one coaching leading up to the retreat, and then after. So many things came up. And we were working on these different abundance blocks, and I was feeling so frustrated because I was feeling like he understood what I needed to do. I was feeling like, honestly, anyone understood like what needed to happen or what shift needed to be made with energetics or with action taking or what have you. And it just wasn't getting through to me. And I use the analogy to him. I'm like, I feel like I'm in a group of people and I have body odor. Like I'm the stinky person and everybody else knows that I'm the stinky person, but I don't smell that I'm the stinky person. And I'm like, what's everybody like freaking out about kind of thing? And just kind of that feeling of like, everybody gets it, but not me. And that was the same feeling that I had when I was up there. And I say up there, like when Divi would work with people, usually she would have a stand up next to her and everyone else was kind of in circle around us or semicircle. So when I was up there standing and she was doing the work with me, and different things would come up and she would try to find these different ways for us to look at things, these different ways for us to see them. And the spirit guides kept kind of redirecting her. And, at one point she brought up like people pleasing and how much we feel kind of that desire to like play the good girl kind of thing. And that happens for guys too. It's just kind of the way that we talk about it. So she had asked everyone to kind of like speak up at the same time. How much do you feel the desire to people please, to play the good girl? And everybody had some level of it. And yet up there, I could not tap into it. And I know 100% that I have good girl conditioning, that I have people pleasing conditioning. There is no freaking doubt about it. But when she asked me, standing up there, all I could say, I think, was zero. Like it was like a scale of 1 to 10 kind of thing, 0 to 10. And I'm like, nope. And it's interesting to me because I think up there, I was able to tap into the truth of who I am. And that's not actually the truth of who I am. And also, I know that, in this 3D world that we're living in right now, I have plenty of that conditioning and that it does affect me on a day-to-day basis. And I felt like such an idiot. I couldn't lie. I couldn't say that I felt it up there, but I just literally could not connect to it. It was like a recreation. It was like I manifested a recreation of exactly what I was talking about with Alexander weeks prior about feeling so singled out, feeling like everybody else got it and I didn't. To the point where literally up there, I'm saying like to the group, like, fill me in. Please tell me what I'm not seeing, what I'm not getting. And you see how all of this revolves around sightedness of some kind, not just the literal sightedness of my eye. There was so many layers to this going on. And it didn't all sink in with me right then and there. Some of it did, not all of it. It's still sinking in with me, to be quite honest. But you can see how like the one topic is not actually the thing. There's so much more to that. And then when we open up and we can see that, we can make so much more progress, so many more breakthroughs, and just keep building upon it. Like I'm still riding the wave of it and discovering what was intended for me from those minutes that I was up there when so much came through. And at one point, I can't remember if I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes or not, but Dr. Divi said that the goddess Kali was standing behind me and that basically I was being called to channel more of my deep, dark feelings, my anger, to be more true about my emotions. And I do believe I mentioned this before because I do feel like I expressed myself. I do feel like I'm true with my emotions, but it was like a calling to experience things on a different level. So all I could really do was open up to that and say, oh, well, with these new eyes, let me see things in that way. Let me sit with my emotions in new and different ways. Let me allow all the feelings to be there and not try to chase them away. And I was given some really unique opportunities to do that after the retreat. So I will come back to that and touch on that. But we all kind of walked away with these different gems from the afternoon and the evening spent with, Divi and all of her amazing intuition. And it definitely was also a wake-up call for me that, we all have these abilities to tap into what's happening in the world that we cannot see, which is so much more than in the world that we can see. And to either get that through clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, or we could get that through clairaudience, which is clear hearing. We could get that through claircognizance, which is clear knowing. We could get that through clairalience, which is clear smelling, or clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And so there's all these different clairs, so to speak, that represent these different ways that we can experience things otherworldly through our senses. And most people typically experience clairsentience, and that is probably the one that is the most experienced, and all the others can be developed. So I really felt this calling to tap into that more and experience more of that, because oftentimes when I'm working with clients, they feel like I'm channeling, and I am channeling. And I think I've been discounting that too much and just being like, oh yeah, I just kind of like, I know you, or I understand, or what have you. But there really is a feeling of connecting with something and pulling in information, feelings, all sorts of stuff when I'm doing EFT and hypnotherapy with people. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. And I do think that it's a really cool skill that I can develop even further than I have already. So I'm excited to do that. And I'm very appreciative for the inspiration that I got from spending the time with Divi that day to take it further. So Saturday night wrapped up, and I felt like we were all just taking turns sharing these different things that were coming through for us after this session ended. And also, I think we were all exhausted. It was the culmination of pretty much the last big event of the retreat. And, from me talking in the last episode, how much we had on Saturday. There was many sessions before lunch, and then Dr. Divi all afternoon and evening. And I feel like that is when physically and emotionally things just really peaked. And I know that I was really happy to get in bed that night. And also, I just felt like there was so much happening and so much integrating in my thoughts that I was up pretty late that night and really processing a lot. And then Sunday morning was our last morning there, and I slept. I didn't worry about getting up and taking a walk or doing anything early. I slept until my body wanted to get up and went down, took a last, dip in the hot tub and got myself packed and ready. It was time to leave the Airbnbs. We did some, final kind of stretching and moving together. And you could tell there was just this feeling in the air that nobody wanted it to end. And also that it felt like we had been there for 7 years. And we all knew that it had to end. It had to go on to the next place. We needed to go back into the world and begin integrating and using all the amazing gifts from having been together in whatever ways we were intended to. So, we had like a closing of the container ceremony, and we all sat in circle. We all shared the things that had happened for us during that time, what we took away from the experience. There was a lot of crying, there was a lot of hugging, and a lot of picture taking and kind of soaking up those moments, just truly appreciating each other and the love, literally, that we had all found for each other in that time together, and the bonds that had formed, the ways that we had supported each other, literally, figuratively. There were really beautiful moments during the time with Dr. Divi when we were doing trust falls and things like that. So there was literal support of the physical nature and then so much of the emotional nature. And we were just soaking that up in those final moments. The sun was shining, eagles were flying overhead. We had an amazing final breakfast that Michaela made for us, and everybody was just kind of packing it all in and getting ready to begin going our separate ways. And Sunday was kind of a transition day. Some people had early flights out. I actually didn't have a flight out until Sunday night. I was flying on a red eye, so I got home very early on Monday morning and flew through the night on Sunday. So I got to spend Sunday, which was actually Mother's Day, really just kind of soaking up the experience and letting everything settle. And one of the guys that was on the retreat used to live right in that area, and he knew of this enchanted forest, is really the only way to put it, that he suggested those of us that were able go take a hike in, which sounded perfect. And that's exactly what we did. So after we said our goodbyes to the group as a whole and closed the container and got everything packed in the cars, one of the girls that had driven there let me go with her, and we went to the enchanted forest. And so probably cut the group size in half, and about 12 of us went hiking. And this forest was like nothing I have ever experienced. And again, another eye-opener, another new way to get to see things. I take walks and hikes with my husband all the time here, but the forests on the East Coast of the United States are different than the forests on the West Coast up north in British Columbia. And man, those evergreen trees are so big. They have such girth to their trunks, and they just go up, up, up. To stand at the bottom of them and we walked this trail. It was probably only like a mile, and we walked slowly. Some of the people went barefoot. I wore shoes. I have very sensitive feet, but some of the people enjoyed just earthing and walking it barefoot. The trails, it almost looked like it could have been like part of a manicured garden, like a national park kind of garden sort of a place. But it was just a normal hiking trail that had been worn in by people's feet, but it was just beautiful. And there were, flowers growing on the sides of the trail, bleeding hearts and other flowers. And it just looked like it had been landscaped, honestly. And it was so pretty. The trees were gorgeous. If you ever find yourself in the area, I actually took a picture of the park sign because I was like, if I ever get back here, I'm coming back to this forest. But it was the city of Chilliwack, and which I've also been told I've been mispronouncing for all of these episodes, calling it Chilliwack. Chilliwack. So actually spoke with a friend of mine whose dad grew up in that area, and I mispronounced it, and she just kind of shook her head at me, and she's like, Chilliwack. Okay, so I'll get it right for this episode. So city of Chilliwack, and it was called Community Forest. So if you're ever in that area, super cute trail, and it was literally like an enchanted forest. I wouldn't have been surprised if I had like seen little gnomes or fairies or something running around in this forest because it was just absolutely perfect. And I was just so grateful. And we literally spent time just hugging these trees, leaning up against them, just breathing with them. I think we were just still experiencing so much of the peacefulness of everything that we had been through. At some point on those days, I don't know if it was Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, this peace came over me, and it literally did not leave until I was home for 2 weeks. It was, for those who follow A Course in Miracles, it was like the holy instant, but it lasted for weeks. And it was so beautiful. And there were times when I literally felt like I was floating and didn't want to open my eyes because I didn't want it to end. And I just felt so peaceful and euphoric and connected and full of just purpose and truth and light and zero anxiety. Just not even an ounce. Just complete trust that everything was unfolding according to a divine plan. So we soaked up the time in the forest. I loved also that they had trilliums growing everywhere. In my last house, I had a trillium. I had planted it from a bulb. Every year it came back. Some years something would eat it before it got to bloom, and I would be so upset. But I loved seeing that. Those perfect, like 3 leaves with the one little flower in the middle. But they were all over the place in that forest. And that was so special. And the branches of the evergreen trees were like covered in moss. One of the locals took our picture, and instead of saying, say cheese, like 1, 2, 3 cheese, they said, say hairy cucumbers. And that's literally what they called these like protrusions from the trees, hairy cucumbers, because that's really what it looked like. They were just kind of like rounded, fuzzy protrusions from the sides of the trees, and just amazing. I'm just kind of like thumbing through my pictures as I'm making this episode, just seeing all of the beautiful ferns and the bleeding hearts and the pathways and the moss just draping over things and these huge bases of the trees. And even like the slugs were different there. I have a couple pictures of like slugs that we found on the paths, and they were totally alien looking to me versus the slugs that we have on the East Coast. So I came home, and my husband and I still get out on different walking trails. My husband's amazing. He'll find us new places to walk Saturday and Sunday morning every weekend, places that we've never been to before. And it's so cool to think that you can live in a place for, gosh, we've been in this general same area of Maryland for the last 15 years. And he finds new places for us all the time. I think it's so beautiful. And I absolutely love it. I always say he's in charge of making sure that we cover like new territory literally in the world. And I'm the one that always makes sure that we cover the new territory like within ourselves and in our relationship and everything else. And I think we both fill those roles beautifully well and make it so that we're always seeing things in new ways in our relationship. And I think that's really kind of the value of this episode, is how you're looking at things really matters, and that there's always a new way that you can be looking at things, a deeper way you can be looking at things, and a truer way that you can be looking at things. So loved the time in the forest. I was so grateful that, that our friend from the retreat shared that with us. And I will absolutely cherish the pictures that I took in the forest forever. And it was just so freaking gorgeous. I can just feel the peace of being back there when I thumbed through those pictures. So we left there, and then an even smaller group of us, it was like every time, the hours shifted through the day on Sunday, we kind of lost a few more people, and until it was just me flying home on the airplane. But I would say maybe 8 or 10 of us out of the group that went to the forest then went to Earl's Kitchen and Bar, which I would also totally recommend. The place was delicious, and it was amazing that on Mother's Day Sunday, they were able to get us a table for that many people on short notice. They took really good care of us, and I had a really delicious hamburger and really delicious French fries, which is probably the most decadent and unhealthy thing I had all weekend. And even that was not bad. So really enjoyed that. Got to talk more with all the people that were there. And I was sitting across from a woman that was on the retreat with me, who was really good with her intuition and with channeling. And she was taking some time to kind of do some muscle testing, ask some questions about the weekend to her spirit guides, and to receive some answers. And we were all still just reveling from the shifts, the changes, and the healing that happened with Dr. Divi on Saturday. And so she was asking her spirit guides how many lives had been affected by our gathering, by, a couple dozen of us getting together and working on ourselves and doing this healing that literally helps with cycle breaking and generational trauma and so many things. How many lives have been affected, will be affected, whether going forward into the future or back through the past, through the healing and the work that we did over the weekend. And her guides told her 150 million. And I still have absolutely no reason to doubt that that is 100% true, because it just felt earth-changing, life-changing. I know the ripple effect goes forward infinitely from here, and that we healed things in the past and just changed the trajectory of so many lives just from the work that we did ourselves that weekend. It was so beautiful and so impactful. So after lunch, our group got even smaller, and we went back to an Airbnb that a couple of the women were renting overnight because they weren't leaving until Monday. And I took a little nap. Felt so good to just lay down, put my headphones on, and do a meditation, a little self-hypnosis, and close my eyes. Really felt the need for rest. And that is something that I needed for those next 2 weeks that followed. Also, while I was still feeling so peaceful and so anxiety-free, I was also feeling the need for rest. Sometimes as early as 9 or 10 in the morning. On days when I'm, waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, I'd get a few hours into the day and be like, I need to close my eyes and sleep for a half an hour or an hour. And I honored that, and it felt amazing. I'm so grateful that I have the flexibility to be able to do that, because it really needed to happen. There was just so much integration happening, body, mind, and spirit, and it required rest in order for it to happen. So took a little rest in the afternoon, we stopped at a coffee shop, got a drink, got a snack, and it got to be the time that we needed to head to the airport. So at that point, it was just me and one person from the retreat who was also heading to the airport for a flight around the similar time. So we figured might as well share an Uber. It's about an hour and a half from where we were back to the airport. So we shared an Uber and went back to the airport. Lovely time to just connect further and summarize the whole experience together. And then it was the airport and we were going separate ways. And I was back on my own and, sitting, waiting for the plane, leaving signed copies of my book on chairs in the in the terminals. I love doing that. And getting myself a bite to eat and getting ready to spend the night on the plane. And that was actually the first time I've ever flown on a red-eye flight. And it was actually pretty nice. It was very peaceful. And while I don't feel like I got great sleep, I did sleep. There was so much peace from the weekend. It just didn't even matter. I think I would have felt like I was flying and floating even if I weren't in an airplane. So it was beautiful. And I was so excited to get home, to be with my husband, to be with my kids, and to step back into life in this new way with this new energy and let it all percolate and come together to become this new beautiful thing, this new beautiful energy that I'm sitting in right now as I record this final part of this episode. But I will say, I came back and I just had this complete and utter appreciation for Jeff, for the way that he supports me, for the way that he just kind of lets me go and do these things that help me grow, even if they're not the same things that he would want to do to grow. And just never really seems to judge it, have any issue with it. I mean, this was my Mother's Day gift, this retreat. And it was beautiful to be able to go away and experience it. And I just had so much love for him coming back. The way that he's such a great dad. He takes care of the kids as well as I do. I know some people feel like when they leave their husbands or their wives that they have to lay everything out and, tell them how things work and everything else. My husband's very hands-on, and it doesn't feel like a whole lot of instruction needs to be given to hand anything off to him because he's so used to doing it. And he's amazing at taking care of the kids. They had a great weekend together, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that my kids get to spend time one-on-one with their dad and not just with me, and experience the way that he handles things and the way that we handle things, because we do so much together. So I just really felt supported in going away for the weekend. And it took me days to even try to convey what I had experienced at the retreat in speaking. But thankfully, we had the foresight. This is kind of like what I was talking about, like how I took time before the retreat to prepare. I had the foresight to keep things free afterwards. So my husband was going to pick me up at the airport, but the time that I got in was like when the kids were getting ready for school. So instead, I ended up just taking an Uber home from the airport, which was better because then he didn't have to fight traffic. I got home after the kids were off to school, and my husband and I were able to just spend the day together. So, we had that time to reconnect, plug back into each other. He took me out to a brand new place for lunch, took me out to a brand new place for a hike. Again, like he's so good at like just infusing our life and our marriage with fun new things all the time, even if they're seemingly right in our backyard. So we went down to, Annapolis, ate lunch at a cute little place on the water, went for a hike, and just kind of like I tried to share as much as I could and also listen and hear what had been going on while I had been away so that I could, be back and understand what had been going on in my absence. And it was beautiful. And that high, like I said, and that peacefulness, it really lasted for so long. I think I smiled and laughed so much more than usual and remembered and reminded myself that that's who I am. That's what it's all about. It was so beautiful. And it still hasn't, left me completely. Thank God. I won't let it. I know better now. So those first couple of weeks were easy. And then, life as we knew it before starts to creep back. And when you've been through an experience like this, there's part of you that fights it, and there's part of you that's been conditioned and hasn't broken that conditioning yet, which is so much of the work that I do. If evolving your consciousness and learning to see things in a different way so that you can experience the world in a new way and make next level changes that transform your life and business is a priority to you, I would love to invite you to book a complimentary insight call with me where I can help you understand how nervous system regulation and subconscious mind work relate to you being able to manifest your desires, your aspirations, and your goals into existence in physical reality. And it doesn't involve you having to travel across the world or go away like I did on this retreat, but it does provide really similar results and a great experience that is going to help you to cultivate more calm, more clarity, and more confidence in your life and business so that you can show up differently in your life and really make this never-ending journey of becoming one that you enjoy getting present for. If that appeals to you, just go to gamechangingconversation.com where you can access my calendar and schedule something that works for you. I cannot wait to meet with you. I have so much fun on these calls, helping you to connect the dots between your challenges and what's going on in your life and business and what it looks like on the other side of doing deep and transformational work like this. I hope to see you on my calendar soon. And a couple of weeks after was pretty much going into the weekend of my birthday. My birthday is May 26th and usually falls on like Memorial Day weekend. And it was on a Sunday this year. And I really found myself kind of like having like retreat crash around that time, like feeling almost like a depression come over me. And it was also a time when, after me being so euphoric, there's kind of like this clash of worlds where it's like, okay, well, I think, there was confusion on my husband's part, like, oh, maybe, you're happier in that environment than here, which is never the case. But there were kind of like these little feelings of conflict coming up between us, like worlds coming back together. And then my birthday, which I realized it wasn't unique to this year. Whether it's my birthday or Christmas or any other holiday where I tend to be celebrated and given things to, I tend to have a strange reaction to that. When I was a little girl, for Christmas, we would be spoiled rotten, and it was beautiful and wonderful, and I loved it. And also, I would find myself just feeling so much sadness for people that didn't have what I have on those days. And I think my birthday, I kind of feel the same way. Like, why should I be so celebrated? Or how am I worthy of this? Or that kind of thing, which again, don't speak to the truth of who I am. And they don't even speak to the highest version of who I am. But still those feelings come up. And I was feeling on my birthday this year just so unworthy of being celebrated and so down in the dumps. Like I had like a half an hour cry on my shower floor on my birthday. And I also felt a calling to be true to those feelings, much like what came up when I was working with Dr. Divi. And I did. And what happened was really difficult and also really transformative because I had to basically, tell Jeff that I was feeling this way and that I just wanted him to witness it. And I know that for men and for my husband, it's really difficult to like see an issue, see a problem, and not try to fix it. So, his reaction was that he wanted to, take me out and do things and get the kids together, make a dinner reservation, go do fun things because it's my birthday. And I just wanted to just be still. I wanted to take a nap. I kind of wanted to wallow, and I wanted to be allowed to do that. And after his kind of initial reaction of like not quite understanding what to do with it, he was really great at just allowing me to feel it and witnessing me and not trying to change anything or, help me to feel differently. I would never say that he tries to make me feel differently, but, he normally does try to help, try to make me feel better and, lift me up, which is beautiful. And I'm so grateful for it. And I was also really grateful for him just letting me be in those feelings and experience them. So, we still did amazing things. We went for an amazing hike my birthday morning, and we all went out to dinner as a family, and I did have a great nap, and I did have a beautiful day with my family, but also I spent time crying and feeling like crap. And I was really glad that I honored that, and I didn't try to chase those feelings away or act like they weren't happening. My energy was super funky, and I think it was just kind of coming back down from the high of everything that I had experienced. And whew, it was quite the trip. So yeah, I was grateful to be called into a place of just really allowing all of my feelings to just be and to experience them, acknowledge them, and accept them all without trying to assign meaning or make them wrong or anything else. It's interesting as we evolve. I'm sure when I listen to these episodes 5 years from now, I'll be in a totally different place. And when I think of where I was 5 years ago, I was in a totally different place. There was a time when I truly believed that some emotions were negative or were worth us working out so that we didn't have to experience them and things like that. I know when I first figured out nervous system regulation, it was like, oh, we can use this to make the negative feelings go away. And even just the fact that I would call them negative feelings. And I think about, there's been marketing for things that I've done where I've talked about eliminating negative feelings and so forth. And I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And also, that's where I was then. And I can honor that and I can be okay with that. We live and we learn. And it's without that trial and error, how do we ever grow? So I've never been one to take down old social media or things like that. But when I look through some things, I do cringe at, what I've gone through to get here. And also I love it because I'm here and being here feels great. And I know that being there where I was 5 years ago also felt great. It's just that consciousness is evolving. It always is. And again, where I'll be 5 years from now, I'll probably look back at this and be like, oh, you were just a little baby of your consciousness then, and now you're grown. But I think it's so important to acknowledge where we come from and to thank those previous versions of ourselves, those inner versions of ourselves, for giving us what we needed then. I thank myself now for giving me what I need now. I thank the me from 5 years ago for being everything that she knew how to be so that I could keep becoming who I am now. I thank my inner 5-year-old, my inner 10-year-old, my inner 20-year-old, all the inner versions of me, because every one of them was always doing the best that she knew how with the circumstances that she had at the time. And I know that that's the absolute truth. And I hope you've enjoyed these episodes. Like I said, I know that more will come up in future episodes because this made such an impact on my life. And if you ever have the opportunity to go do something like this, do it without hesitation. Do it without hesitation. And just revel in the experience and the growth, vulnerability, the authenticity, the just beautiful wonder of it all. There's so much to take in and experience in this world. And when we can do it in community and with others and in a way where we can be seen and witnessed, it all comes back to that sightedness. We can learn to see and experience the world with new eyes, the eyes that are necessary to catch what needs to be caught in order for us to grow and experience and see things in a new light and in the truth of who we really are. And I think too often we forget who we are. And we have so much light and so much God and so much good making us who we are. So don't you forget it. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.